don't have much to say. The only thoughts I have is this chapter would be slightly lower quality than chapter 3, seeing as they just reused the smiling critters concept for the nightmare critters, which could indicate some lack of creativity a bit. On the topic of characters, the fact that they're trying to introduce like a bunch of them worries me that this chapter could end up being really bloated or under-deliver on these promises it's making. Another thing too is I heard that a bunch of the team got fired and one of the two head directors had left due to severe creative differences with this chapter. So, seeing as it's happened, I expect this chapter to not be as impressive as chapter 3. Alright, so to start, the game just oftentimes throws you into a section or random mission with it being very vague on what exactly you're supposed to do. Specifically the Baba Chops maze thing, various codes, and the segment where the doctor tries to gas you in the beginning, but have to escape in a not so obvious spot where you also have to tear bars open, is frustrating and honestly pretty annoying. Another thing I found annoying is that the character, Pianosaurus, was hyped up a pretty good amount in the promotional material for Chapter 4, just to end up being a waste so he can be a kill for Doey. I get they possibly wanted to do that so they could throw the player off somehow, but it feels so strange to just make an entirely new character and make him have less than 30 seconds of screen time. Why didn't they just use some Huggy copy instead? We see a bunch of them throughout the entire franchise, so it wouldn't be that big of a deal if this was Pianosaurus's only purpose. Anyways, moving on. There were several points in the game where I just clipped through the top of an event because I couldn't register my movements properly. Then also there were several other points where I tried running off to somewhere and ended up becoming stuck in the void because the devs had forgotten or just didn't bother putting a kill trigger to prevent this from happening. Everything else is fine. The story was enjoyable even if at times, like others have said, it's predictable. However, I've experienced predictable stories many times, so I ultimately don't care so long it's good, and it is in my opinion. The prototype appearances are very cool and love that character now, along with Kissy for how caring she is about us. Poppy I'm neutral about still. Doey's alright. The nightmare critters feel like the smiling critters without any personality, and if you remove them I don't think anything would have been lost in the game. Yarnaby is silly but deadly, however very underutilized, as well as the doctor, but he's pretty cool as well. Speaking of the doctor, I'm pretty sure his segment is completely broken, since the NPCs just eventually become stuck and start running into each other or the walls. And in general, the whole near mid segment ending part of this chapter felt very rushed. At least some parts of it felt very rushed. Oh, another glitch was this. I just realized I can explain what's going on. It loads in the music and sounds for the Yarnaby chase, but nothing is happening, and the game should instead know you're farther ahead by now. This only happens when you die and reload a save, or just reload a save manually. The scene, the music does eventually end though, seeing as I just kind of continued playing through to see until if it ends, which it does, luckily. So my overall thoughts are, even though this chapter was great in terms of story and lore, overall I feel that at certain times, puzzles and or sequences were very confusing on a first playthrough. There were a lot of glitches and or oversights, and honestly, this is not worth the extra $5, making it $20 versus when chapter 3 was $15. And honestly, speaking of chapter 3, it was much better than this. I will say though, I mean, I like the ending. It was pretty cool hearing the prototype talk and walk all around us, and Kissy fear being animated, I guess I could put it as. Huggy's return too at the end of the chapter was really cool. Did not really expect that coming, or maybe I did because I saw a thumbnail where they put him in there, so I knew they needed to return. Though I'm not too surprised because there were signs, and I know chapter 2 there were signs of him coming back. I don't know if there were any in chapter 3. There might have been. Yeah, those are just my thoughts on chapter 4. Back to syringing in the video.